Welcome back to Monster Tamer, a 2D Pokemon-like RPG created Phaser 3. Previously, we worked on adding our NPC game objects using our metadata from a tiled export into our world scene. If you missed the previous videos, there'll be links in the video description to the source code up to this point, as well as complete source code for this video. There'll also be a link to the previous videos if you'd like to catch up. So let's get started. Alright, so now that we have our NPC game objects in our game, what we need to do is we need to actually add in our logic for checking for collisions. So currently our player game object is able to go up to one of our NPCs and it can move through it because our NPCs are dynamic and they're not part of our collision layer data. And so what we need to do is we need to go ahead and pass these game objects to our player. Then that way we can check before we move if one of those NPCs is in that position. Likewise, for NPCs, any of them that do move, we need to pass the characters that might collide with their path. And so for the time being, this is just be our player, but if we ever have any complex NPC patterns or AI, you'd want to pass those NPCs to each other as well, so you can check for collisions. And so to do this, the first thing we're going to go ahead and need to do is we need to update our character class. And what we need to do is we need to go ahead and update our config to allow us to pass in any characters. We need to check for collisions. So instead of just passing in all characters, we just want to pass in the ones that are tied to the appropriate game object. For example, like the player, we'll check for NPCs. NPC will check for the player. And so what we'll do is in our configuration for our character config, let's add a new property. And for this property, we are going to make this a character and we'll have it be an array of characters. And then we're going to make this optional. And then that way we're only going to check for collisions with other characters if we provide them. And we'll go ahead and call this other characters to check for collisions with. And we're going to set it to an empty array by default. Let's go ahead and update our class to have this protected property. And so what we'll do is we're just going to copy this. We'll go ahead and paste it. And let's go ahead and add our prefix for protected. And then let's go ahead and add in our type. So what we'll do is we'll do our protected type. And we will make this a character array. And then what we'll do is we'll come down to our constructor. And let's go ahead and assign that property. So before we create our phaser game object, let's go ahead and do this, our other characters to check for collision with, and we'll set equal to our config, other characters check for collision with, or we'll default to an empty array if it's not provided. All right, and then so what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to have a race condition for when we create our player and for our NPCs. If we jump back to our world scene, what I mean by that is when we create our NPCs, we don't have our player. So that means when we instantiate these, we won't have our player game object to pass to it. Likewise, if we place our player before the NPCs, we wouldn't have a way to pass our NPCs to our player. And so in order to resolve that, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to add a new public method so we can add characters to the instance after it's been instantiated. And then that we can go ahead and add them after they're created. So what we'll do is let's come down below our move character method and let's add a new public method, and we'll do add character to check for collisions with. And we will expect character for our only parameter. And so what we'll do is we'll reference our protected property, and so we'll do our other characters check for collisions with, and we'll go ahead and push that character into our array. And then real quick, let's go ahead and add in our JSDoc types. And so for our param, we'll have our character be type character, and we won't return anything. All right, so then what we should be able to do is let's go back to our world scene, and let's go ahead and update our code to go ahead and provide these values. So when we create our player instance, let's go ahead and add in our other characters check for collisions with, and we are going to pass in our NPCs. Then that way we have all of those game objects. Then what we'll do is after we create our player, we'll update our NPCs to have a reference to our player game object. So what we'll do is let's jump down below our camera following our player. Let's add a comment and we'll do update our collisions with NPCs. And let's just do this NPCs. We'll do for each, and then for each of our NPCs, we are going to go ahead and call that new method we just added. So we'll do NPC add character check for collision with, and we'll do this dot player. Alright, so now that we've updated our character class to expect our game objects that we need to check for collisions with, what we're going to go ahead and do is we need to come down to our logic where we check for a blocking tile. And so if we go ahead and come to is blocking tile method, right now we're checking for collisions based on a tile that's next to the player. But in addition to that, we're going to want to check for game objects that might be in that same position. And so what we'll do is we're going to return this does position collide with a collision layer. And then we're also going to say or, we'll make a new method and we'll do does position collide with other character. And what we'll do is we'll also pass in our updated position. And then so what we'll do is let's go ahead and create that method. So if we come down to the bottom of our class, let's go ahead and copy our block of code here for we check for our collision layer. All right, and then what we'll do is let's go ahead and update our method name. So let's go ahead and copy our method name. And so we'll have does position collide with other character, and we'll still have position for our parameter. And so what we're going to do is let's go ahead and return false, just to go ahead and return our value. All right, so what we're going to want to go ahead and do in this method is we need to take all of our game objects that are provided to this instance of our character, and we need to check their position to see if it aligns with the position that we provided. And so for our idle characters, this will just be their current position, but for any characters that are moving, we'll need to check both their target position and their previous target position. And then that way, like, let's say if they're halfway between moving, we know that those two tiles should be blocked off and our character can't move there until the character is fully out of that tile. And so to go ahead and do this, the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to check to see if we actually have characters check for collisions. So we're going to do if this other character check for collision with, and we're going to grab the length of our array. If it's equal to 0, we're just going to go ahead and return early. And so we'll go ahead and return false. If it's not true, then we actually have our positions that we need to check. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we'll make a new variable. We'll do const collides with a character, and we'll set that equal to this. We're going to grab our other character check for collisions with, and then we're going to go ahead and use the sum method. And then so on here, and then we'll have our character that we're going to go ahead and check for collisions with. And so inside here, what we want to do is we want to return if our characters dot target position dot x is equal to the x position that was provided here. And so what we're going to go ahead and do is let's go ahead and just destructure this to grab those so we don't have to reference position dot x and position dot y. And so we'll see if this is equal to x, and our character dot target position dot y is equal to y. So if our character's target position is equal to the position our character is trying to move to, then we want to go ahead and return true. Also, if this is true, or if our character's previous target position is equal to the same position, then we want to go ahead and return true. So let's go ahead and copy this, we'll paste it, and we'll go ahead and change this to previous target position x and our previous target position dot y. And then so we'll go ahead and return here. And so what we want to return is we're going to go ahead and return collides with a character. All right, and so with our new method for checking for collisions with characters, what we should be able to do is we should be able to go ahead and test. So if we come to our game, if we take our player character and we move over by one of our NPCs, if we try to move to that NPC position, we'll see that we're not able to actually move through our NPC. And so now we have our collisions actually working. And just to make sure it's working with multiple NPCs, let's go down to our other character, and we'll also try to move through that character, and we should be blocked. All right, so with our logic for checking for collisions between our player and our NPCs done, that actually brings this video to an end. In our next video, we'll continue working with our NPCs, and we're going to focus on allowing our player to talk to our NPCs. And so what we'll be doing is we'll be reusing our dialogue component that we built, and we'll be displaying the text from our NPC to our screen. So as a reminder, there's a link in the description of the video to complete source code for this video. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did enjoy the video, please consider liking the video and hit the bell icon to be notified when the next video in the series is released. For more great Phaser 3 content, please see some links on your screen now.